Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on this show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, what photography means to them, and to dig a little deeper into the way they think about their photography. Robin Dodd is an accomplished British landscape photographer whose work is deeply rooted in woodlands, rivers and mountain landscapes. Based in the Chiltern Hills, just outside London, Robin is drawn to places of quiet complexity, believing the British countryside offers some of the most rewarding and expressive landscapes in the world. His photography balances structure and spontaneity, revealing calm and clarity within seemingly chaotic natural environments. Entirely self-taught, Robin's relationship with photography began at 14, developing film in his bedroom. A formative period living in Cold War Berlin shaped his visual philosophy, teaching him how creative freedom can exist even within physical and conceptual constraints. That mindset continues to inform his approach to composition and visual storytelling today. Robin's work has received significant national recognition, including winning UK Landscape Photographer of the Year 2021 and British Wildlife Photography Awards 2024. Alongside multiple shortlistings and touring exhibitions with Forestry England. His photographs are widely exhibited across the UK and featured in major publications. In this conversation, Robin explores emotional pull of the landscape, the role of weather, and the importance of slowing down to truly see composition. He also discusses printmaking, mentoring, Woodland workshops, and his recently published ebook, Order in the Chaos. His insights reflect a thoughtful, grounded practice shaped by patience, curiosity, and deep connection to place. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Robin. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How's your day going?
Thanks for inviting me. Our weather patterns are slightly different as our times are.
Yeah,
It's quite late here. We got snow on the way, and I think you got wildfires or something.
Yeah, something like that. It's going to be a warm one here, about 40 degrees. So I think you're into the sub-zero temperatures, eh?
Yeah, I was out a couple mornings ago. It was -6, -7, which you get used to.
Yeah. That's about as cold as it will ever get anywhere in Australia. It's about -7. Occasionally, I think it's gone beyond -10, but for most parts of Australia to see temps on.
Is that like the Blue Mountains or something?
Yeah, you will occasionally get snow on the Blue Mountains, but the Snowy Mountains, funnily enough.
Oh, okay. That's very Australian.
It's a snowy mountain. Oh, well, that's what we'll call it.
Yeah.
But down there you can get into the -7s overnight, -10 occasionally, but not much cooler than that. But, I think occasionally southern tip of Tasmania might get into the -11 territory as well, because they're a fair bit further south. But mostly pretty warm, and very warm today where I am. So I'll try and stay hydrated and stay in the air conditioning today.
Good.
So, Robin Dodd, why are you a photographer and why are you a landscape photographer? What is it about landscape photography that you've decided to dedicate a fair chunk of your life to it?
Well, I suppose there's a number of reasons. I was an army brat. Old man was in the army. We travelled around the world. By the time I was 20, I'd lived in 20 different houses.
Wow.
Which is slightly more than a normal forces family would do, but not unusual. So I've been to lots of different countries. And to be frank, why am I a landscape photographer? Well, I'm a British landscape photographer. British landscapes. I do go further afield, but although I travelled around, I'd started shooting when I was younger, from probably about the age of 13 or 14. I just felt the British landscape was the best. I fell in love with Scotland, and it was an excuse to go to places like Scotland or down to the coast here. So I got into it that way. I mean, initially, I first started taking up photography seriously, 14 at school and developing my own film, which is what you did back in those days, black and white film. Didn't have the money or the technical skills to take it any further than black and white, not color. And you take local shots, but they were never really good for landscapes, black and white, back in those days. You really didn't have the control that you have now.
The dynamic range was really challenging too. Film, depending on what your ISO was, etc.
You were either Ansel Adams or you weren't. With that sort of skill set. And I suppose just technically I got better over the years. I sort of did a bit of street photography, but I've gone back doing a little bit of street photography at the moment. I've released a YouTube video of what I've done recently over the last year. And there was a bit of street photography in that for various reasons. So I live quite close to London, so it's quite easy to get in and shoot that. But I think when I started working full time, I was working in London for the emergency services, that sort of thing. And, I'd have to be at work by 6 o'clock in the morning. And it was that time that you had those smoky, misty mornings. And you might be working and, sunrise comes. So I'm a dawn photographer, really. I just fell in love with that. We moved slightly further out of London, or I would commute in, and you just see these, these gorgeous landscapes. And so, I moved towards taking more. It's all right, you can take photographs, but you look at a camera store and you're thinking, there's just something missing there. And then I started getting into composition. And when I started to understand composition properly, then I progressed, and then I thought, wow, this is cool. I really love this. And then I wanted people to see my pictures. And the pictures are local, a lot of them, or have been over more recent years. And I felt local prints. People like that. People like Burr. And it's just local stuff. So I'm showing them the landscape that we have here.
Yeah.
And the Chilterns here, as the crow flies, we're probably about 35, 40 miles from the centre of London.
Yep.
And we come up we're on the Thames River. It goes into this valley with old villages and that type of thing. And beautiful woodlands that are ancient woodlands going back hundreds, thousands of years in reality. And the history of those is really interesting. And I do a lot of woodland photography. I shoot a lot down by the river, but then I also go further. So the question is, why? I love it. And I love showing people here. I love showing them the picture. I love people saying, oh, is that real, or you photoshopped that or whatever? And there's a fine line there, isn't there?
Well, I love that question. It always comes up, doesn't it? And now it's that AI, but it's kind of like, and the way I try to explain it to the layman is, if you go back to the film days and you took a negative, right, and I showed you that negative, you go, well, that's rubbish. I can't really see what's there, and the colours are all inverted, etc. It's just not right. Once I take that negative and develop it and give you a finished product, right, I've done stuff to it. And all I'm doing with Photoshop is doing similar things. I'm adjusting contrast, I'm dodging, I'm burning, I'm doing things which basically come out of darkroom techniques, and I'm giving you a developed picture.
Yeah. And I think, people think that a real photographer, hard back to him again, is Ansel Adams.
Yep.
But the amount of manipulation that he had to do to produce the scene that he'd seen, because of the limitations of the film.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, you showed someone the original negative, they go, well, I thought you were supposed to be some professional photographer. And Ansel's going, well, there's a bit more work behind it than that, and then cracks on with it.
I remember seeing him in an interview saying that the negative is like, in cooking, it's like the recipe. And a different chef will bend and twist that recipe to how he thinks it should go, because he knows what his tastes are like. He knows what his customers' tastes are like. And, the same with the photographer. You are, and I think he said in that interview that, another photographer taking exactly that same negative would come out with a completely different result. The composition would be much the same. Yes, the colours, if it was colour, but he worked mostly in black and white, So a lot of that tonal change would happen in that process between the negative development and the end development of the image into print.
I think what it is now with digital cameras, because you're capable of catching the full range, a dynamic range within the images, your images go look a little bit odd, but you've obviously in your head you block where the light's coming and all that, and you're putting it back to the way that you saw it. I've edited a fair few images now online for like YouTube. I've got a YouTube channel, and the idea is just occasionally to help people, show them, how to do an edit, particularly of woodlands.
Sure.
What struck me is I might do all this editing online, but actually people say, well, there's not much difference in the original picture you took. And there isn't, but there is a subtle difference.
Yeah.
But it's just putting back shadows in certain places and drawing the eye to where you want these people to see, or the viewer to see. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess you talked a little bit about that transition where you started to work on composition and understand that better. Was that the point where you said, okay, what I'm doing is no longer documenting what I'm seeing, but more producing art? Or did that come later?
That's a real interesting one. So I'm a big believer in, am I right in this? It may be that from my perspective, I'm not an artist. I wouldn't say that. No, I'm part of the Henley Art Skills here, and there's a whole wealth of artists as well. The images I produce are based on an artist's perspective. So I'm looking at creating an image that someone goes, wow, that's pretty cool. And at the same time doing what the artist does, which is leading the person's eye, whether that be from choosing the crop and the composition, or whether choosing how the light plays on certain parts and layering the scene. But the reason I say that I don't almost believe it's being an artist is because I have to wait. I have to wait for that image, or I'm actually, for that mist, for that light.
Yep.
Yeah. Yesterday, a couple of days ago, was a prime example. You just checked the night before what the weather was going to be like, headed off down to the river, realised that actually you've done those shots before, but you might get something further up in the hills. Yeah. -6, set up with freezing hands, get your composition right, and then the light starts to kick off. It's the world's doing it for you. Same with street photography. The only difference is you're producing the photographer's style and what you want the viewer to see.
Yeah, you're creating an interpretation of what the world has shown you.
Is that art? From a photographer's point of view, I don't want to say that that's art. I think that is, it's producing something. Is that art? I don't know. It's a difficult question to answer. And I would say no.
Okay.
Some people will say yes. Like I put pictures out there and I call them fine art. I've got a black and white one there. I don't know if you can see them. This is one that I took of Scotland recently. And that's, wild weather on the north coast of Skye, and there's a lighthouse there, East Point.
Yep.
So 50, 60 mile an hour winds. It's a bit arty, but it's black and white. But the reason it's black and white, and the reason it's black and white is because that's the interpretation of it. It was awful weather. There was never going to be any colour in it.
Yeah.
How do you do it? And then
you're looking at the world which is showing you tones of grey, so you might as well interpret it as tones of grey.
and lead the person's eye through it and give them that feeling. A person with a camera who hadn't sort of had a skill set in relation to that would have just taken the shot and it would have been a bit muddy. I've got an idea in my head what I want to show someone. I can put that on paper nowadays.
Yeah.
And I would say probably 10, 12 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do that, sure.
Yeah, interesting. I'm keen to explore how you think about, I call it art, but your work, let's call it that. And the way that you sort of described it to me just then, waiting for the light and waiting for something to appear and show itself, but also using that interpretation. I'm keen to explore whether or not you do any kind of pre-visualization. You talked about a bit of planning there of saying, okay, well, the weather looks like I might get some fog or mist or frost or something, you know, something that's going to add some interest to the scene. I'm going to somewhere that I know that I can get a composition. Are you thinking about what it is that you want to show somebody before you even set foot outside the door? Or are you basically responding to what you're seeing and then doing it more intuitively or more instinctively after the fact or during the fact when you're out in the field?
So everything is dictated by weather, particularly in the UK. And so, for example, a couple of days ago, you have a vision in your head of how that shot's going to come out. I knew what it would look like down on the river. And I knew what it would look like up in the hills. I knew there was a tree that I would want to photograph, but out in the open, the layers of the receding valley and then this beautiful sky that was coming and the snow and the frost on the ground. All that's there, I know that. But that's all weather. And I know, even as I'm on my way to take those photographs, and when I'm standing setting up, generally I know even what type of paper I might be printing on. So yes, there becomes a point when your composition gets so competent, you suddenly flick over and you will stand there with the camera and you're even thinking that many ply ahead. Like I was always useless at chess, could never think more than 3 ply ahead. But with photography, you can, nowadays, I'm thinking, what would the viewer think? What would they want to see? How would it be? And like I've heard a lot of people, or maybe it was straying off here, I've heard a lot of people over the years go, you shouldn't worry about what other people think about photography and all this sort of stuff. Well, I do. I don't much money at all out of landscape photography, so I'm not going for hard felt. Well, for various circumstances, I don't have to. I'm in a good position where I can get on and do the photography without having to worry about the finances and having to go out and sell. So I don't, but I still want the people to like what is there. I think that's important. It's not because it makes I don't know, boost my ego. It's more, I need to show people what of the people think, oh yeah, that's cool. And then, look, I'm not plugging this because I've sold all the copies. I did about 100 copies. That's a book of the local area.
Yeah.
It's sort of copy style book and everything, got lots of pictures of the river and all that type of thing. And, that's what I want people to see and what I want them to give. And they've got to like it.
Yeah.
Why would I want to do a photograph that people don't like? Just do it for me, and then what are you going to do with it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's output. So the final thoughts in the head are, what is my final output going to be? Is this going to be on a YouTube thing? Is this going to be a bit of Instagram? Is this going to be a print that I'm going to sell? Could this go in a book?
Sure.
That's when I'm taking a photograph. That's why I'm pre-visualizing.
Interesting. What was the first time a landscape sort of said to you, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do as much as I possibly can. Where was that and what was that moment like for you?
Well, strangely, it's up there on the wall. You probably can't see. Question of whether that's a landscape or not but it's probably relevant to the current. I've got this on the wall still, but it's relevant to the current politics of our world. That's Glienicke Bridge in Berlin.
Yep.
They, we had a tour in Berlin
Mm-hmm.
in the mid-80s during the height of the Cold War, and we used to cross over that bridge because of what the old man did. We used to liaise with the Russians. There was a bit of socialization, I think, is probably a better word for it. And a few snaps were had. And I was in my early 20s then. I was a student, and the Russians used to give me the odd bottle of vodka to keep me going from time to time. And we had a mission place over on the other side, which was in the east. And the old man had a lot of camera equipment, good stuff, Nikon stuff. And so I started taking that and using it. And you were confined within Berlin. And a lot of people don't know this. Berlin is like 300 kilometers into East Germany, just with a corridor to join it. So we were completely surrounded. And and you had to create something photographically within those confines of being within that.
Yeah, you couldn't get outside the city.
You couldn't go out. No.
Yeah.
Where you would either get shot or detained, one of the two.
Yeah, well, carrying a camera around in East Germany was...
That's not good news. Strangely, they encouraged that over there. They're all taking pictures of each other.
Yeah.
So you could go over there, and in the stores, they had lots of camera equipment. They were called Patrica cameras, because their whole economy was getting towards that type of thing, spying on each other, I suppose. And yeah, so going back to that, so I think that was the time when I took that shot. It's a cityscape, go landscape. I thought, that's really cool. It's nighttime. It's Glienicke Bridge. It's where they used to swap all the spies. Just do the long walk along there. Yeah, and that was the one that really appealed to me. And then unfortunately, I then ended up having to get a job and earn some money later on. I did a bit of stuff when I was a student union stuff, but that was more people, street sort of thing.
Yeah, sure.
And then, I did big thing. We moved out here from central London about 25 years ago now.
Right.
No, 20 years ago. And I just fell in love with this area and the river. You can't go wrong. A misty morning on the river down here.
Absolutely.
I defy anyone not to find a decent shot.
We all love those sorts of places. What, other than the river, what's the place that keeps drawing you back and saying, "Hey, I've got unfinished business," or "I've got more to do here"?
The Woodlands for me, that's endless. It's timeless. I'll go into a forest and 3 or 4 weeks later, it can be very different. We got these beautiful old ancient beech trees and oak trees, a lot of beech trees. So that is business that will be ongoing for the rest of my life. I just love it so much. I learned a lot about trees, how they interact with each other, the real weirdness behind it all. Life of trees is a bit weird and not what people think. There's a bit more life in there than you think.
Absolutely.
You come back and old friends have blown down the following year. We got a big storm coming in now.
Yeah.
We've got 80-mile-an-hour winds hitting us tonight, and potentially snow. And that there'll be old friends gone, and you'll go and it'll create light within the woodlands. New trees will grow up. And that's been going on for years for me. So that's the great thing. I love Scotland. I've been going there since the age of, I think I was first up there when I was probably about 13 or 14. And I've been going up there nearly every year. It's since I was about 20 with my mates. We go climbing, hill walking, also drinking lots of scotch, all that type of stuff. And it's just a wonderful place. And it's one of the few places I think left in the UK that you can lose yourself and not see anyone all day. If you're prepared to go up on a mountain and you have to take some risks sometimes with that. I've done a shot recently that was a bit risky. The location we get to, which is this one here, this is Scotland. This is up near in the Outer Hebrides. But to get down to this point here, there was a bit of climbing, and there'd been some rock falls. And you get to know people on Instagram, and there's a bit of a debate on Instagram about that particular location. So a lot of people can't get down there, and unless you're prepared to take a little bit of a risk. And I solo up in the mountains as well. I go up by myself.
Right.
And one of my more recent videos of Scotland, I go into that and discuss the issues of photography in Scotland. It's not dangerous photography in Scotland, but you have to have a certain level of not experience, but knowledge and a bit of kit with you just to make sure you don't get into too much trouble. I mean, there was a German guy at one of the mountains, Blad Bien, up on Skye, and while I was up there, some guy went missing, and he wasn't found for 4 weeks. And as you can imagine, 4 weeks wasn't so good for him. There's a lot of that up in Scotland, so you just got to be a little bit careful.
I think that's true of any wild place, though. If you're going into wilderness, you have to know what you're doing. Unless you
that must be quite relevant in Australia. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's places here that I would be very cautious about going because I don't know enough about what I'm doing in some of those locations without having somebody, either a professional guide or somebody else that knows the area, knows, where you can and can't go. Because there are places, if you go out into the outback, and let's say you're driving, okay, take a 4-wheel drive. That sounds great. Take extra fuel, take spare tyres, etc. But you end up with 2 flat tyres, your spare tyre's done. How are you getting out of there?
Yeah.
And what do you do when you're in that position? Have you taken your EPIRB with you, etc., etc.? There's things that you need to think about before you go into some of these places, even if you've got a vehicle and the vehicular access to it. And even more so if you're out walking, having an EPIRB, for example, I think is an absolute must when you're going into a remote location, because unless somebody, and also having people back home that know where you're going, the general area, so that if somebody has to come out searching for you, they starting in the right place.
Yeah. I take a PLB with me, personal location beacon. I think what you're doing solo in Scotland, that's essential. But, having been to Australia, I know what you're talking about. I went to Western Australia for a bit. I was hitching through there. Luckily, I wasn't murdered. Although, there is some interesting lives. I'm not sure people don't hitch nowadays. I don't know, do they, over there?
You still see it occasionally, but it is rare. It's a lot rarer than it used to be.
Yeah, it was very common when I did it. I mean, I can remember getting dropped off, and then we were up near Broome somewhere, and I took some pictures up. Is it the Hammersley Ranges or something like that? But I can remember walking in one direction and thinking, hang on a minute, which is the way back to the car? And just so quickly you get disorientated. I mean, Australia, you could fall asleep and wake up 4 hours later and think you're in the same place.
Yeah, well, there's a recent, well, I say recent, 2 years ago, a Belgian tourist went missing down in Tasmania, went out on a walk to Philosopher Falls in rugged southwestern Tasmania. You're talking about horizontal woodland where trees have fallen, or there's even trees which are growing, and you can actually have anything up to 4 or 5 meters of tree between, and branches and bits and pieces between what you're walking on in terms of trees and the ground. And you could be 3 or 5 meters above the ground walking.
They're dead trees, are they?
Well, not just dead ones, growing ones as well. They're horizontal. And then there's trees and canopy up around you above that as well. And she went missing 2 years ago. They're still not found her. they found her, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, they found her phone, a mineral water bottle, and a black plastic garbage bag that they think she might have used. And this was sort of found under the roots of a fallen tree that sort of formed a bit of a shelter. They thought she might have sheltered there, but they still have not located her remains. And there's still people out searching for her 2 years later, and that's the sort of stuff that can happen if you're going into places that you don't have experience of and don't understand the risks and the dangers of walking around in some of those places.
There's Scotland is, well, most of the UK is fine. You haven't got any problem at all.
Sure.
Scotland is just getting lost in mist, falling off the top of the mountain, or the weather coming in and getting frozen to death. Really, they're the two main. Occasionally we get avalanches, but yeah, this is there are quite a few people killed over the years up in Scotland this year.
Yeah. You talked about Ansel Adams being, who else has been one of your main influences in terms of your photography and, how they've sort of shaped how you think about your photography?
Well, strangely, but it isn't landscape photography orientated, although the gentleman now does two landscapes. They're very dark and moody ones. And Don McCullum. Have you heard of Don McCullum?
I have. I've seen some of his work, yeah.
So he's 90 now. And me and my daughter, we went to go and see him being interviewed by a chap called Jeremy Barron, who's a well-known war correspondent here. We saw him in the Barbican Centre recently. And his story is just amazing. I love those stories of photographers who took those risks. So we've been talking about risks. We took that. I was never had to take risks like that when I was younger. Yeah. We took those risks very early on in their lives. He started by photographing East London gangs. And then couldn't that, he got a job with one of the big papers and they sent him off around the world doing wars. And I just love his black and white photography because that's how I started black and white photography and the grittiness of it, but the story and the way he produces those images. And sometimes there's not a lot of difference between those types of images because there's a thought going into the layering and that type of stuff and where the person's eye goes to landscape. So you can learn a lot from that. And I'm sure there's plenty of other photographers. I mean, I've got quite interested in over the years in the YouTube photographers, the usual bands of people, but they do produce some good stuff.
Yeah.
Thomas Heaton, and I'm not sure I should say this, but I think Gavin Hardcastle's stuff is all right, quite good. And yeah, I learned a lot from them. You can't take that away. And they do all their tutorials online.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. Who else? So I think my mind's got a bit blown now on that. But there are people. Charlie Way, I quite like some of his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Way, a UK photographer, he's quite well known over here. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about leading the viewer's eyes into your images. Do you see that, some photographers talk about telling a story with their images. Do you see that as part of your work, or is it more about saying, okay, well, here's what I've seen and here's where I want you to look, and that's all there is to it? There's some people that are all about telling a story, and part of that story might be the lead up and what led them to go to that place in the first place. But others, it is all about the finished product. For you, where do you sit?
My final output or optimum output is a picture that goes on the wall. So you probably can't see it here, but where I've got those two pictures that I produce, they go on the wall here and they stay for some time. It's almost like a toleration level to see if they still work for me. And if they do, then they're destined for framing and sale to go on a wall, and people will like them. So the eye has to continually be interested in the image.
Yeah.
And to just take a picture and say, well, that's it. That's not enough. There has to be more to it than that. There has to be the eyes retains, my view, is essentially by an atmosphere. And that atmosphere is the photography produces that atmosphere a number of ways and draws the eye through it, through that atmosphere is the best way to describe it. So, for example, running water, fluid clouds, and then going into a misty background and that, and then hopefully the viewer, well, you can make sure that the viewer's eye will go to certain rocks along the way,
Sure.
and retains, and then there's a circular thing, or almost like a wonder to what's being seen there. You don't just take the picture, you not just showing the person the picture, you draw in the eye so they feel it.
Yep.
They feel the picture, whether anyone understands that idea or concept. But my view is you have to feel a picture.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. And it's one of the things that I attempt. I don't know if I always succeed, but I attempt to drag into my own work where I want you to get the feeling of me standing knee deep in, seawater as a wave rushes towards us.
Yeah.
I want you to feel that when you're looking at my work, or when I'm up at a waterfall, the way that looks, etc., and the way that it feels. Expressing that emotional pull is an essential part of art, if nothing else. And I think, it's also very challenging because you can take a pretty picture and that's all it is a pretty picture if there's no emotional pull to it. But I think you've got to work a little bit harder to actually pull out a feeling with an image. You've got those two dimensions to work with, but you then have the dimensions of tone and colour and light and shadow, and making them work together to actually get people to go, oh yeah, I feel what you're feeling there, whether it's that moody seascape or a bright and breezy image of a tree in autumn with lots of autumn colour.
But at the same time, it has to be there. You can't force.
No.
All you're doing is helping and assisting it. It's to do with all sorts of things coming together at the same time, the light, the weather, all those different things. But if you're an okay landscape photographer, setting your composition up to show that, you're gonna be quick sometimes, and that's
totally.
It's not. And sometimes people think that landscape photography is a bit of a slow, ponderous job, and it is sometimes. But I've been crap with all the, sport stuff and catching the family doing stupid things and that sort of stuff. But sometimes this skill set, working really fast in light, you've only got a couple of minutes with, and just making sure you nail the shot. That's a skill. That's for sure.
Yeah. I'm interested, sort of harking back to the emotional stuff. Do you think that how you feel out in the field influences how you then take the image to its finished product? So are you, I guess, pulling the emotional feel that you had at that moment in the field through into the final image?
Yeah, I wouldn't be happy producing a photograph of something that wasn't what it was.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I'm always thinking, how will the final output be? But the final output is an emotional one to an extent, whether that be down by the river and lots of mist and someone going past in a boat or a rower going past or something like that. That has a serene feel to it. I want to put that across. And the reflection, though it could be wild weather with waves crashing and that sort of stuff. Everything you do in camera to capture that is putting the emotion across. Now, you think, well, do I need a long exposure for this? Sure, a short exposure for this to put across the feeling. Or I do want those waves to, be 100%. Wow, bang, that thing. Or is it curvy and got that feel. Yeah, and how do you want that to feel to people? And yes, so I think that's important to think that you're going to go back that emotion. And to be honest, when I come back to edit, it just hasn't got it. We don't go any further with it, and we move on to the next one.
What is your editing process like? Are you straight into it when you get back from a shoot, or do you leave things to marinate for a bit before you get back into them? Some people like that separation. Other people like the urgency and the response in the moment. And I'm just interested in how people, different photographers take that view.
I heard some people talking about this recently and saying, oh, you know, I've got to leave it a month before I come back and start doing the images. You know, for me, bang, the image has been taken. I've got the feeling in me. I want to put that across and let's do it now. So I won't hang around for more than a few days. And normally the delay will be because I've got other things to do.
Sure.
So I think for me, let's get in there and let's get it done. Occasionally, I'll come back over old images and think, hang on a minute, and start editing that. But I might dismiss that. I mean, if I was to review all my images over the last year, I reckon there is probably, you know, if I've had time, there's probably about 7 or 8 real bangers in there that I missed.
Yeah.
But I'm quite good at picking it up as soon as I get in, and I'll have whittled it down pretty much straight away to maybe 5 images. They're the ones. But sometimes the process can be a little bit complicated because I do the focus stacking and sometimes with a high dynamic range, I'll use luminosity masks to sort of get that
exposure blending. Yeah.
And I have some of my photography has actually moved. I've noticed started to move a lot more to shooting into the sun, and it has. I just think that shooting a little bit into the sun, it's got that emotional bit to it as well. So
I think that the sunrise light when it pops above the horizon, I think the feeling that you get both standing there looking at that, but also looking at someone's images where that's happened, I think does have that emotional pull. It gives, I don't know why, but it gives you that hopeful feeling, I guess, is the way that I look at it. You know, here's a new day. It's filled with endless possibilities.
For me, and it might be just because I'm standing there taking those images, to me, those images seem calmer. And at the end of it, I mean, you've got a hot, roaring day ahead of you. I'm not sure what your sunset would be like there, but
I think it's just going to be blue skies for sure.
There you go. But I'm not a great sunset person. I do sunsets, but don't go out of my way because I'm just keen and waiting for the next year exciting days ahead, I think, and that's what I want to photograph.
Yeah, nice. What do you think landscape photography has done for you to help you grow or change as a person?
I think it's made me a calmer person. It's given me purpose. I do a bit of contract work doing other stuff from time to time.
Oh.
I try to do as little of that as possible and just do photography because I'm just happy doing that. I can go to Woodland, start photographing and look up and start thinking about breakfast and 4 hours are gone.
Yeah.
You know, it's a weird experience, but particularly with the Woodland stuff, it's very engrossing. I love it.
Are you summer, spring, winter, autumn, or all 4?
Everything. I just love the variety of it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, and our seasons, I know certain parts of Australia, maybe your seasons are a bit more limited. It's hot all the time, or
depends on where you are, but
yeah.
Like if you're in Melbourne, you get 4 seasons in a day, as they say.
Yeah. So I just love the different seasons, and that's the way we live, isn't it? It's all about. You can always find something, even in the depths of winter. There's something there. Come February, maybe it might be starting to struggle, but if you think about it, you can go and find something. In February, I go to Scotland.
Yeah, right.
go and show wild, cold, nasty Scotland.
You talked about getting there to the end print. Do you print your own work or do you use a lab? How do you go about prepping an image for printing?
I print up to A3, which, if I don't know as many now, but if I do like an arts and crafts show, most people are looking for A3. I learned over the years that it's all to do with how much space someone's got in a house.
Sure.
Us Brits have got tiny little hovels, so there's not as much wall space to cover them. So they're not so keen on buying prints as maybe they are in the States. So bigger than that, I've got a guy that I use who's really good. He does reproduction work normally for artists. And I was part of the arts and crafts guild.
Yeah.
His prints just absolutely bang on, spot on. I would love to print larger than A3. It's just a question of who am I going to sell that to?
Right.
That is the big thing with prints. You print, and then I've got lots of prints, and then I've got more prints. I need to sell them to people. How do you sell those prints? That's a big, big issue, I think. I mean, I don't take it quite as seriously as some people do. And I think anyone who's a landscape photographer knows that you'd be delusional to think that you can sell and make money out selling prints.
Yeah. It's a tough gig.
It is, yeah. I do sell, and I've got an online site to sell. As strangely, have had a bit more interest recently on the site, but you very rarely ever sell online on the site. I was listening to someone recently who was saying, like, people fabricate over this. They want to see it. They want to come back again and see it again. It's a tactile experience to buy, whether that be a work of art or whether that a photograph that's going to go on their wall.
Yeah.
It's not a straightforward experience. I want that buy on Amazon type thing because it's the best speaker on the planet or something. But yeah. So for print, I love printing. That's my final output.
Yeah, fair enough. Tell us a little bit about the arts and crafts group that you're part of. How did that start for you, and what sort of things are they doing? Obviously promoting each other's work, but
they have a show probably about 3 times a year. They do workshops where you can go and sketch a lady in the nude and all that sort of stuff. There's really amazing artists, struggling artists. Every artist is struggling, and so we go down. There's a venue in Henley, and we'll put our works in the set format. I'm allowed 3 frame pictures and stuff in the browser and all that sort of stuff. And there's all different types of mediums, really. There's Dave, a mate of mine, he's a potter, used to be a surgeon, he's now a potter. Richard, a proper trained artist, never makes any money out of it. But
that's fairly standard for artists, though, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, they're just great people, lovely to chat to. And, if you're doing an arts and crafts show, you got to sit there for maybe 2 or 3 days, bank holiday and that. So you get to know people quite well. It's quite good fun. And, they make beautiful stuff. People should be buying and everyone's too tight.
It's the economy, isn't it?
It is. I mean, we're not doing so well here in the UK nowadays.
No, there's not much
topic of conversation. It's a big topic of conversation.
Absolutely. Let's talk about when you struggle to find inspiration with your photography. Have you ever had situations like that? How did you handle them? Do you have strategies for dealing with that?
I tend to go to the woods. Like if I'm really struggling, I'll go to the woods. There's always something in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what time of the year it is, but I said February, like maybe not. And then what else would I do? I'll mix it up. So I started camera chopping.
Yep.
Wildlife camera chopping. I won one of the categories in British Wildlife Photography Awards a couple of years ago, and they gave me a nice bit of money. And with that, I brought some camera trapping stuff.
Cool.
And I had a technical ability for that type work anyway, in past experience. And so I did that. So you just do something different. This year, summer months, it can get a bit difficult, bright lights and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Go into central London, start doing street photography when it rains and either the harsh light or when it rains and at night and the reflections and all that sort of stuff. And I've got my infrared camera, I thought, so I think it's very important for people that to think, well, I'm struggling here. Don't get siloed. Do something different. I got my camera converted, one of my older cameras, but it's a mirrorless one. Canon EOS R, just absolutely phenomenal. How to convert it into black and white. Well, not black and white. It does both. It's full spectrum, so you can convert it back into color, but converted it into infrared. I've done a blog on that on my page. If people are listening, it's worth having a look at. Yeah, so there's always something. Photography, you can, just do something different.
Nice. What do you see as photography's place in society? Where does it sit?
Well, who knows now with AI? You believe anything, couldn't you? Like I said, I love.
To be able to be used as an arbiter of truth, but I don't think that's the case anymore.
Yeah, I used to love those photographers, Don McCullen, Tim Page. They were those war photographers, stroke social photographers. What's his name? God, he just died recently.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his first name either.
Just Martin Parr, was it? I think.
Could be.
Just a great, social photographer. I love that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, it's very important, isn't it? It's everywhere. If you look Instagram, every kind of media and outlook, much more so than when we were younger, when we were in the 70s, just bombarded by it. It's a lot of noise. And if you're a photographer, can you be seen and put your story across?
Yeah.
Because that's where it is. It's telling a story, whether it be telling a story of someone having been shot in something horrific, or whether it's telling a story of something beautiful, whether it be penguins or polar bears in the Arctic, and make people stop and just think for a little bit. I think that's the important thing. An image that makes someone stop and think is the important thing. And maybe that's why we now spend all our time on mobile phones, because we're actually thinking, we're seeing all these images. We just keep looking at them and thinking about it.
Maybe, yeah. What's the best and or worst piece of advice anyone's given you?
Best bit of advice in relation to photography?
Oh, it doesn't have to be, but yeah.
It's too rude to tell you. But if anyone knows the joke, it's something to do with the, I think it's the four Fs. Don't spend the money on the four Fs, which was flying. I won't go into it.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so what? The best. Let me just think about advice on photography. Get my monitor calibrated.
Okay. That's good advice.
That was good advice.
Particularly if you want to print.
Yeah. And show people the images that you think showing them.
True. Yeah.
That was great advice. And the worst bit of advice I think I've been given, the worst bit of advice, I think that was probably what we talked about earlier, is don't worry about what other people think. I don't think that's good advice. Depending upon who you are and why.
Yeah.
If you're, we're discussing what part has photography got to do in society, as we were before. Well, it's important. If it's important to society, it's important to other people. So make it important to other people. Do your own thing and not care about what people think. No one's going to take much notice. And if it is good, yeah, great. But most people, you got to give someone something, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. We're going to have to wrap up fairly shortly. I've just got a couple more questions. Are there any photographers that I need to be talking to on the show? Yeah.
There's a great photographer that I've sort of been working with at the moment called Jules. Let me just get Jules's surname up. I can never pronounce it. Everything's going slow at the moment. It must be all this wind. Jules Oldroyd.
Okay.
Shall I spell it for you?
No, it's fine. Well,
Okay. So Jules Oldroyd, she's got a website called Jules Oldroyd Photography. I mean, I did do a bit of camera tracking myself, and I still do from time to time. But she is a wonderful photographer. She's recently produced some brilliant photography from the Antarctic in relation to penguins. So I've never seen anything like it. Penguins and chicks. Mm. And then she's done a lot of stuff in the Arctic with polar bears. And I just think her images are stunning. And then a lot of her images put the animals within the landscape context.
right.
And so they're almost landscape photographs as well, with these added elements of the animals. And she does a lot of stuff in Africa and that. But her polar stuff, I just think is phenomenal. So yeah, that's one of my top photographers at the moment.
Fantastic. Thank you. My last question is one that I've been asking since the beginning of the show, and I think it's one that divides a lot of people. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Definitely.
Awesome.
It's got a bit of ham in it.
Yeah, you need the salt with the sweet, don't you?
Yeah. So yeah, what's the general consensus nowadays?
In terms of the numbers, I think it was about 54 to 46% positive.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can't go far wrong with that pointer.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us, Robin.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for having us on. I hope I haven't bored you too much, but
absolutely not. No, it's
good to chat to other people about it. And you sort of get it right in your head a little bit as well when you talk these things over.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's definitely been an education for me, sitting through, what are you, episode 234.
Right.
So, yeah. So sitting through all of these interviews and hearing different opinions and different ways of looking at things, it's definitely made me think a bit differently about my photography.
Yeah, really interesting.
What can people do?
Well, how did you start off? How did you start doing?
Oh, it all started back in COVID. I was in lockdown that extended out to 165 days of not able to go more than 5 kilometres away from where I live. And where I live is western suburban Sydney, so I can't go to the beach, which is one of my favourite photography locations.
Yeah.
I can't even go up the Blue Mountains, which is not too far away, and there's a bit of a muddy stream that runs through a park here that I could go and try and make a photo of, but it's not something that makes me go, oh yes, I really want to go there. Because start a podcast or go absolutely bananas trying to sort something out creatively.
Yeah.
So that was pretty much the reason why I started.
Good thing to do. Very commendable.
Oh, I'm thoroughly enjoying it too.
Yeah.
I was going to ask also, where can people find your work? Whereabouts can people find Robin?
So basically, my site is called fastfoxphotography.com, and so that's the website. And I regularly, every couple of weeks, I'll do a blog, and they'll be almost like, so they're inspiring, like give you ideas what to do photography wise, or
Awesome.
how to do this, or places to go. And then I've got Instagram. Oh, hang on. Are you still there?
Yep.
I'm running out of power.
Oh, okay.
And that is Fast Fox Photo on Instagram. And I've got a YouTube channel, which is, if you just put in Robin Dodd Fast Fox Photography, it will come up. So, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, mate. It's been wonderful to get to know you a bit better.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. Hopefully, our paths will cross again in the not too distant future.
Let's hope so. Thanks, Robin.
And if you're over this way, please give us a shout.
Oh, definitely.
We'll take you up to the wilds of Scotland or something.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah. All right. Cheers, Grant. Thanks very much.
Cheers. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Vero, Photo, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe because it really helps get this podcast seen and heard. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.